The alarm goes off, a new day begins, and just like that, before you've moved a single muscle, before you've opened your eyes fully, before the world outside has had even 1 second to reach in and start pulling at you, you are already at a crossroads. You are already making a choice, even if you don't realize it's happening. And here is something that most people go their entire lives without truly stopping to consider. What separates an ordinary life from an extraordinary one isn't primarily what you accomplish during the hours of the day. It isn't the size of your goals or the speed of your progress or the number of things you check off a list. What separates those two kinds of lives at the deepest and most fundamental level is what you tell yourself before you've even begun. Before your feet touch the floor, before you reach for your phone and let the noise of the world in, before the demands and the deadlines and the expectations and the obligations start competing for your attention. There is a moment, a quiet, brief, almost invisible moment, and in that moment, the most important conversation of your entire day takes place. Not the meeting you'll sit in later, not the difficult conversation you've been putting off, not the presentation or the negotiation or the phone call you're dreading. The most important conversation of your day is the one you have with yourself right at the start of it, before anything else has had a chance to speak to you. The tragedy is that most people never choose that conversation. They let it happen on its own, automatically, running on whatever pattern has been established by years of habit and accumulated stress. Their first thoughts in the morning are shaped by unfinished problems they carried to bed with them, by yesterday's frustrations that didn't get resolved, by anxiety about what's coming today, what might go wrong, what they haven't prepared for, what someone might think of them, what they might not be able to handle. And then those same people wonder why their days feel repetitive, why there's a kind of heaviness that doesn't lift, why things feel draining and reactive and somehow always slightly out of control. They think the problem is the day. They think the problem is their circumstances, their workload, their relationships, their schedule. But the truth is much simpler than that, and it's also much closer to home. Your life is not shaped primarily by what happens to you. It is shaped by what happens inside you. And what happens inside you begins with the very first thoughts that move through your mind each morning. I say this not as a theory, but from personal experience, because there was a time when I didn't understand any of this. My mornings were rushed and reactive and scattered from the moment the alarm sounded. My mind would launch immediately into everything that could go wrong, every deadline bearing down on me, every pressure I was carrying, every expectation I might not meet. Before I had done a single productive thing, before I had even brushed my teeth, I had already exhausted myself mentally by running through a full catalog of problems, most of which hadn't even happened yet, and many of which never would. I was doing damage to my day before my day had started, and the frustrating thing is that I didn't recognize it as a pattern for a long time. It just felt like being realistic. It felt like being responsible. It felt like the appropriate response to a life that had real demands in it. Until one day something shifted. I realized with a clarity I hadn't had before that I wasn't living deliberately. I was running on default, operating on autopilot, letting my mind do whatever it had been conditioned to do without ever questioning whether that was actually serving me. And the most direct and powerful way to change that, the thing that could produce an immediate and felt difference in how I was showing up for my own life, was to take deliberate control over what I was telling myself in those first moments after waking. Not with empty phrases that mean nothing and produce nothing. Not with fake positivity that papers over real challenges with a thin layer of forced optimism, but with deliberate, grounded, purposeful statements. Declarations that represent real mental positions, real decisions about how to approach the day, real commitments to a way of operating that, practiced consistently over time, genuinely changes how you experience your life. What I want to share with you today are 5 of those declarations, and I want you to understand from the beginning that these are not just words. Words by themselves do very little. These are decisions. They are choices you make at the start of each day about who you are going to be and how you are going to move through what's coming. And every time you make them intentionally, you reinforce an identity and a way of operating that compounds over time into something real and lasting. Let's go through them. The first declaration is this: I own this day. Not I hope today goes well. Not let's see what happens and hope for the best. Not maybe today will be different. I own this day. And I want to spend some time here because the difference between those mindsets is not a small one. It is the difference between a passive relationship with your life and an active one. When you hope, you are standing back and waiting to see what arrives. When you own, you are in the front, making decisions, taking responsibility, directing your energy where it needs to go. Ownership changes everything about how you move through the hours. Think about the things in your life that you truly own. Think about the care you take with them, the attention you give them, the decisions you make about them. You don't treat things you own casually. You take care of them. You protect them. You don't hand control of them to whoever happens to come along and want a piece. Your day deserves exactly that same level of respect and intentionality. Every single day you are given 86,400 seconds. No one on this planet gets more. No one gets less. It is the one perfectly equal resource distributed to every human being alive. And yet look at the difference in what people produce from those same seconds. Some people turn them into growth, into progress, into connection, into meaning. Others lose them almost entirely to distraction and stress and reactive behavior and the slow drain of living without direction. The difference is not the time. The time is identical. The difference is ownership. The people who don't take ownership of their days are easy to recognize. They say things like, I don't have enough time. I don't know where the day went. I'm always behind. Things just keep happening to me. And they genuinely believe it because from inside their experience, it feels true. The day does seem to disappear. They do feel behind. But what's actually happening is that they have given up the steering wheel and then feel surprised that they ended up somewhere they didn't intend. The people who own their days think and speak and act differently. They decide in advance where their time and energy are going. They act with intention rather than just responding to whatever comes. They don't wait for the day to shape them. They shape the day. And even when things don't go according to plan, which they often won't, because life is genuinely unpredictable and will always produce surprises, they still own their response to those things. Traffic on the way to somewhere important? You own your reaction to that. An unexpected problem that lands in your lap mid-morning. You own how you approach solving it. An opportunity that appears when you weren't expecting it? You own whether you recognize it and act on it or let it pass while you were busy being reactive. Ownership is not always easy. It requires honesty because it means you can't blame everything on external circumstances. It requires discipline because it means making deliberate choices instead of just doing whatever feels easiest in the moment. But what it gives you in return is something that people who live without it are always searching for without knowing what they're looking for. It gives you a sense of real control. Not control over everything that happens. That's not available to anyone. But control over your direction, control over what you do with what you're given. And that is more than enough to build something extraordinary. The second declaration, I embrace the discomfort of growth. And let's be completely honest about this one from the start, because honesty is the only thing that makes this declaration worth anything. Growth is uncomfortable. It has always been uncomfortable, it will always be uncomfortable, and no amount of reframing or motivational language changes that fundamental reality. Learning something new feels awkward and effortful. Taking real risks creates genuine uncertainty that sits in your chest and doesn't feel good. Changing long-established habits requires sustained effort against the pull of everything that is familiar and automatic. This is not a distortion or an exaggeration. It is simply the nature of growth, and pretending otherwise does no one any favors. The problem is that most people are waiting. They are waiting to feel comfortable before they begin growing, waiting for the conditions to feel right, waiting for the fear to settle down, waiting for the moment when it all feels natural and ready and good. And that moment, that specific version of conditions they're waiting for, never arrives. It cannot arrive because comfort and growth do not occupy the same space. You cannot be fully comfortable and fully growing at the same time. They are by their very nature mutually exclusive. Look at the natural world for a moment. A seed has to break open, actually break apart, before anything can grow from it. A bird has to leave the safety of the nest before it discovers that it can fly. Muscle tissue has to experience genuine stress and damage before the body rebuilds it stronger than it was. In every case, the discomfort is not incidental to the growth. It is the mechanism of the growth. It is how the change actually happens. Discomfort is not a signal that something has gone wrong. It is a signal that something is changing. And change in the direction you want is exactly what you are after. When you start your day by declaring that you embrace the discomfort of growth, you are doing something powerful to your relationship with the hard things waiting for you. You are no longer approaching them as obstacles to be avoided or endured. You are approaching them as exactly the material your growth is made from. That early morning resistance when you don't want to get up and do the work, that is growth. That difficult conversation you have been finding reasons to postpone for weeks, that is growth. That project that keeps getting pushed to the bottom of the list because starting it feels overwhelming and uncertain, that is growth. The things most people spend their energy running from are precisely where transformation lives. And when you change your relationship with those things, everything else changes too. Instead of asking, how do I get out of this, you start asking, what is this trying to build in me? That is a completely different question, and it produces completely different results. The third declaration, I focus on what I can control. This one addresses one of the single largest sources of unnecessary suffering in human life, which is the habit of directing your energy and attention toward things that are completely outside your influence. Other people's opinions of you, the state of the economy, the behavior of people who have their own minds and their own reasons for what they do, unexpected events that arrive without warning or permission. The past, which is fixed and finished and cannot be changed by any amount of attention you give it. We pour enormous amounts of energy into these things, worrying about them, trying to manage them, feeling frustrated and helpless when they don't respond to our efforts, which they often don't because they were never ours to manage in the first place. There is a useful way to think about this. In life, there are essentially three categories of things. There are the things you can control directly. There are the things you can influence to some degree, but not control entirely. And there are the things you cannot control at all, not even slightly. Most people spend a disproportionate and exhausting amount of their time and energy in that third category. They focus on what other people are doing, what they think, what they might say, how external circumstances are moving. And the result is a constant sense of powerlessness, because you are exerting effort in an area where effort produces no return. Effective people, people who consistently make progress, who remain steady under pressure, who seem to get more done with less internal friction, have learned to redirect their focus to the first category. Their mindset, their actions, their effort and attitude, and the choices they make about how to respond. When you begin your day with the declaration that you focus on what you can control, you're drawing a deliberate line between what belongs to you and what doesn't. You stop draining your energy on frustration and start investing it where it can actually produce something. Even in the middle of genuine chaos, even when everything external seems to be going sideways, there is always something within your control. Sometimes it is significant. Sometimes it is small. But it is always enough to take the next step forward, and the next step is all you ever actually need. The fourth declaration, I deliver value before I expect anything in return. This one runs against the grain of how most people are conditioned to think. Most people wake up with some version of the question, what will I get today, running quietly in the background? What do I deserve? What should be coming to me? What am I owed for the effort I've already put in? And there is nothing wrong with wanting recognition or reward or results. Those are legitimate human desires. But when that wanting comes first, before the contribution, something gets distorted. The energy becomes grasping rather than generative. And grasping energy rarely produces the outcomes people are hoping for. The most consistently successful people, across industries, across contexts, across wildly different definitions of what success means, share a particular orientation that shows up before anything else. They think first about what they can contribute. They ask how they can help improve something, solve something, create something that wasn't there before. They show up to every interaction and every task and every opportunity with the question, what value can I bring here, running ahead of what can I get from this? And what happens as a result of that orientation is something that might seem counterintuitive until you see it play out enough times to believe it. The value comes back. Not always immediately, not always from the same direction it went out, but consistently, over time, it returns. This isn't about being endlessly selfless to the point of depleting yourself. It isn't about allowing yourself to be used or taken advantage of or giving without any expectation of ever receiving. It's about understanding a simple and durable truth about how value works in the world. Value creates opportunity. When you become someone who consistently and genuinely delivers more than what is minimally required, not out of obligation, but out of a real commitment to doing good work and being a real contribution, you become someone that people trust, someone they rely on, someone whose name comes up when opportunities are being considered and decisions are being made about who belongs at the table. And people like that are always in demand, regardless of the economic climate or the industry or the particular circumstances they're operating in. The fifth and final declaration, I am grateful for what is while working toward what could be. This is about holding two things at once that might seem like they're in tension with each other, but are in fact deeply complementary when understood correctly. On one side, there are people who have built a kind of relentless dissatisfaction into their operating system. They achieve things, but don't feel the achievement because they've already moved on to what they haven't done yet. They accomplish goals and feel almost nothing because the next goal is already demanding attention. They are never present enough with what is to genuinely appreciate it, and as a result, a kind of hollowness develops underneath all their striving that no amount of achievement seems to fill. On the other side, there are people who have become so comfortable with what they have that they've stopped reaching. They appreciate their current situation, which is genuinely good, but that appreciation has gradually replaced ambition rather than existing alongside it. They've confused gratitude with contentment in a way that has made them stationary, and somewhere underneath the comfort, they can feel something quietly going stagnant. Both of these extremes limit you in their own way. Real strength, the kind that sustains itself over the long haul and produces a life that feels both meaningful and forward-moving, comes from learning to hold both gratitude and ambition in the same hand at the same time. To genuinely appreciate what already exists in your life, the relationships, the progress you've already made, the things you've built, the person you've become, while simultaneously keeping your eyes and your energy oriented toward what you're still becoming and still building. When you begin your day with that declaration, you create something very specific inside yourself, clarity without desperation. You are not running from where you are because you can't stand it. You are moving toward where you're going because you genuinely want it. That is a very different energy to carry through a day, and over time, it produces very different results. So here is where I want to leave you. These 5 declarations: I own this day, I embrace the discomfort of growth, I focus on what I can control, I deliver value before I expect anything in return, I am grateful for what is while working toward what could be, are not magic. I am not going to tell you that saying them will transform your life overnight, because that would be dishonest, and you deserve honesty more than you deserve comfort. They don't change your life overnight. What they change is something more foundational than that. They change how you approach your life. They change the internal posture you bring to every situation, every challenge, every opportunity, every ordinary, unremarkable day that most people let pass without much thought. And that change, sustained over time and practiced with genuine intention, changes everything. Because your life is not built in the dramatic moments. It is not built in the milestone events or the extraordinary circumstances. It is built in the ordinary days. The regular Tuesday mornings and the unremarkable Wednesday afternoons and the Friday evenings when you're tired and no one is watching. Those days, stacked one on top of another, are what your life is actually made of. And those days begin with what you choose to tell yourself before anything else has had the chance to speak.